Today, we're going to break down this absolutely fascinating story about what it really takes to change. Now, it was originally presented as a sermon, but when you look closer, it's actually this incredible case study, a 7-month personal experiment that tried to answer one very tough question.
So the speaker, who's a pastor, kicks things off with this really provocative question. He was bothered by something he saw all around him, people who said they believed in something powerful, yet their actual day-to-day lives looked exactly the same. And honestly, that question goes way beyond religion, right? It's about why any of our big beliefs so often fail to actually change how we act.
And this was his conclusion. It was bold, almost shockingly blunt. He was basically arguing that if a belief system, and he meant any belief system, doesn't lead to real, tangible, personal change, then something is seriously wrong with it. For him, the stakes couldn't be higher. Faith had to be a force for transformation, or, well, it was kind of pointless.
So where did this all come from? Well, it was born out of a personal crisis. The speaker looked around at his community, and really the whole world, and he realized that he often couldn't tell the difference between people who claimed to have faiths and people who didn't. He saw the same patterns, the same desires, the same struggles, and it made him question the very foundation of what he was teaching.
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got the ideal, right? The idea that faith should be this powerful engine for creating what he calls a new self. But then on the other side, you have the reality he was seeing. Faith as just another weekend habit, something that had zero impact on the old self. And it's that huge gap between the ideal and the real that he just had to figure out.
So he got to this point where he decided he couldn't just talk about change anymore. He felt like he had absolutely no right to stand up and tell other people to transform their lives if he couldn't first prove that it was even possible in his own. He needed to run a test on himself.
And he knew, he really knew how hard this was going to be. He brings up the classic example of New Year's resolutions, what he calls the 3-day resolve, where all our amazing intentions just completely fall apart by January 3rd. He understood this wasn't some niche religious problem. It's a deeply, deeply human struggle.
To really drive this point home, he tells this fantastic story. Back in the early 2000s, there was this consultant who charged $250,000 for a single lecture. Get this, his clients were already super rich, so they weren't trying to make more money. They were paying him to help them change tiny little habits, like quitting smoking or finally starting to exercise. And even after forking over $250,000, nearly half of them still couldn't do it. The lesson? You just can't buy change.
So what was the challenge he set for himself? Here it is. After a trip to Korea where he walked everywhere and felt amazing, he set a simple, measurable, but incredibly difficult goal. Walk 10,000 steps every single day. No exceptions. And you have to understand, this wasn't some little week-long challenge. No, this became his entire life for 7 straight months. Every day was a test, and his watch was the scorecard. This whole journey became his personal laboratory for figuring out how change actually works.
But here's the thing. It did not start well. Not at all. Look at this. This is his data from May, the first month. He failed more days than he succeeded. He was just like the rest of us when we start a new habit. He was struggling. He was inconsistent.
But then something shifted. He had this moment of realization. He looked at his own failures, and he thought about the very people he was supposed to be leading. And this question just hit him like a ton of bricks. His motivation completely changed. It wasn't about self-improvement anymore. It was about integrity. If he couldn't even do this, how could he possibly preach about anything else?
And just look at what happened next. This is June, a perfect month. Bam. Every single day, he hit his goal. That moment of crisis clearly lit a fire under him.
And it didn't stop there. That consistency just kept rolling right through July, August, and September. Day in, day out, week after week, he just kept building that chain, refusing to let it break. What started as this huge struggle was slowly turning into a solid, unbreakable habit. This is where you really see his commitment shine. It's October, and he managed to hit his goal even while traveling internationally. He talks about how incredibly hard it was on a plane, crossing the international date line. But you see, the excuses were all gone. All that was left was the commitment.
And here we go, the grand finale of his experiment. November and December, also perfect. That's it. 7 straight months, through sickness, travel, tiredness, you name it, he kept that promise to himself. He finally had his proof.
So after all that walking, what was the big takeaway? Yeah, he hit his fitness goal, but the real lesson he learned was so much deeper than that.
And this is so important to get. The experiment was never really about walking. The 10,000 steps, that was just the tool.
It was the physical proof of concept for a much bigger, much more important idea.
It all boiled down to this one simple, incredibly powerful idea. Change is possible. He described himself as a weak-willed person, yet he had completely rewired a daily habit through nothing more than persistent daily effort. His whole point was, if he could do it, then anyone can. The real barrier to change isn't that it's impossible, it's that we lack the day-in, day-out commitment.
So now, with that proof in his pocket, he could finally connect his personal journey all the way back to his original question. The whole point of proving change was possible was to show how a person could start the real work, the work of building a new set of virtues, or what his source material calls putting on the new self. So what is this new self exactly? Well, it's the version of you that you build on purpose, with intention. It's not about some overnight magical transformation. It's a daily, step-by-step, grinded-out process of choosing to live by a new set of values.
And these are the characteristics he's talking about, taken from the biblical text of Colossians. But he's quick to point out that these aren't just fuzzy ideas. Just like walking 10,000 steps, if you want to be more compassionate, or more patient, or more grateful, you have to practice it every single day. And love, he says, that's the glue that holds all the other virtues together.
And the point is, you can't just box this stuff up. It's not about being a better person for an hour on a Sunday. It's about bringing these virtues into every single part of your life. When you're at work, when you're at home with your family, when you're with your friends, it's about everything you say and everything you do. So, having proven to himself that change is actually possible, he ends by turning the challenge outward. His personal story becomes a universal invitation. His journey becomes a potential roadmap for all of us. And that's really what this whole 7-month experiment boils down to, right? A question for you and for me. The story proves that real, lasting change isn't some myth. It's a process. And that process always starts with one single daily commitment. So the only question left is, what journey of change are you going to start today?